on the other side of the coin, there's Russia, right? And if you dive into Russia's economy, their GDP, like Germany, has pretty much flatlined except for the pandemic and the war period. So we're going to throw up a chart here that shows a little bit about what's going on in Russia and why we focus on this. Like just to zoom out a little bit, when economies don't grow and when opportunity feels like it's slipping away, often it's followed with social disruption. Uh, Consistently, there's been like governments have solved this issues by starting wars, escalating wars. There's lots of ways that they typically, it's kind of the typical playbook. When things slow down, they look for other ways, other places to either distract or get growth from something else. So why don't you dive into what's going on in Russia with their GDP right now? And I know you dove in and did some research here. Give us kind of a breakdown of what's happening in Russia in 2025.
So that chart you just referenced, we'll throw it up here again. It shows the annual GDP growth rate in Russia, and we have a blended line here, and it's pretty similar to Germany, which is the growth rate's pretty dang low, and it's back to about 2016 levels. You have this big volatile time during the pandemic, so right during 2020 into 2021, so a big dip, big rebound, and then it dipped a lot after kind of the pandemic recovery, but then the war started, right? Russia invaded Ukraine, and then Russia's economy boosted up again, but they're falling. And that's the most important thing to know about right now. The Russian economy, according to statistics we have, or the world has available to itself, is starting to slow down more. So, this war machine that they have been ramping up for their special military operation in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, is seeming to not really accelerate their economy as maybe internally they had hoped. And this article just came out. This is actually from TASS, which is a Russian state-sponsored news agency. Says Russia's GDP growth rate slows to 2% in Q1 of 2025, and they expect the growth rate for the rest of the year to slow down even further. So to dive into that a little bit, it's important to understand what's actually happening right now in Russia. So during the war and during the pandemic, Russia was actually selling a lot of oil to China and to India. Well, Trump just a couple of days ago just announced that if any country receives oil from Russia directly, they're going to be subject to 500% tariffs and other parts of those economies. So China would be subject to 500% tariffs if they receive oil directly from Russia. Well, this is kind of breaking news over the past couple of weeks. China's like, okay, we're not going to get Russian oil. They just don't want to get mixed into that. Now, a side note, what might be happening is Iranian and Russian oil may be going through Malaysia and then going to China. So there's kind of this workaround. But the point is that it's definitely hitting Russia right now, which is countries are trying to distance themselves from Russia because they're realizing the majority of the world is saying, Russia, you're being a bad boy, you're going to get disciplined. And most countries are like, you know what? There's probably not a battle I want to get entangled in right now. Let's just step away. So Russia's actual GDP growth, but also just the revenue being generated by the government there is going to slow down even more because there are less countries willing to do trade with Russia, and most people know Russia is a huge commodity rich country. They have a ton of oil, gas, all of that. So if less countries are willing to do business with them, obviously revenues within Russia are going to fall. We'll throw up another chart here, which is it shows basically the GDP for Russia blended out with this line again, and it just articulates that hey, they're in trouble. It's dropping off here as we head into the latter half of 2025, and it's likely to contract even more. And I think when that happens, Russia's going to start to get desperate. What are they going to do? I don't know, but it's clearly um, it makes sense why Putin is not willing to go to the negotiating table right now with Zelensky, with Putin. He's got an internal problem right now, and he may need to ramp up his war machine again in order to jumpstart his economy.